Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and this is going to be a Raid Shadow Legends video going over the interview that Skratch did with Cirilla, where they talked about different topics going on in Raid and in the community for about 45 minutes. So I will link to the full video down below. Head on over to Skratch's channel and throw him a sub, throw him a like. It was a great interview, and also check out the full video to get context. But I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on some of the topics discussed here in the video and some of the answers that Cirilla had for us. There was a lot of important things discussed, like big content coming by the end of the year for PvE, the artifact ascension, the summoning rates for soul stones, and being able to get the blessings for champions that you actually want, and a lot of different topics within the game. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so I went through and I watched the full video from start to finish, and I took down some notes on some of the key talking points and the things that I wanted to give you my take on and react to based on Cirilla's answer. Now, one thing I do want to point out is they talked a lot about the memes going on in the Raid official Discord. They have a memes channel, which is absolutely fantastic. I've done contributions to that channel myself. The one that I enjoyed the most that I worked on was the Arena Sheep meme that I worked on, and I was just dying laughing the whole time that I was sitting in Photoshop working on it. So that was the favorite one that I've done and contributed to the memes channel. But definitely head on over to the memes section on Raid's Discord. It is a lot of fun. And again, they talked about a ton of stuff for 45 minutes, so I'm not going to talk about every single thing. I'm just going to kind of talk about the things that stood out to me and want to give you some of my context on. So they did mention the Soulstone mechanic and some of the odds of acquiring the champions that you wish to have, which I think is super important because it's hard to get the champions. Then you get a champion you like. It's hard to max them out. You have to spend books and everything, get their masteries, and it's really hard to get to that point. And then you get to that point where you've got a champion you like, you've invested a lot into them, and you just don't have an effective way to get the blessing for them. So it's like that super crazy layer of RNG on top of layers of RNG, and it just feels kind of hopeless because there's like almost 800 champions in the game, and you're trying to get a blessing for a champion that you've already had a difficult time to get and a difficult time to max out and invest in. And I thought this was a key moment in the video because Cirilla did confirm that Plarium is willing to look at this and consider things like a 2x or a 10x or a guarantee for some of these different soulstone mechanics. So I don't know how to take that. Like, do we start saving up our soulstones and wait for 3 or 4 months from now when we can actually get 2x events, or like maybe they'll do a guaranteed type of event where they'll put up like a 5-star blessing for Duchess if you pull at least like 50 mortal soulstones or something. I'm just like spitballing. I don't know what they're gonna do, but it is a little bit interesting that they are going to be exploring, confirmed, to give us some of those important mechanics to kind of match some of the stuff that we get for shards, because we have all sorts of events for shards and then we have like nothing for the blessing mechanics. So something worth thinking about there with your different soul stones is that we may be getting events for the different odds on acquiring champions in games similar to what we have for shards. And they talked about live arena for a little bit. I thought one of the most important things in the live arena discussion was Cirilla agreed that 30 minutes was way too long for a live arena match. I've said from the start that there needs to be a shorter time frame, and there also needs to be some sort of a tiebreaker. It's a huge feels bad when you do a 30-minute match and then both players just lose and waste their time. I do understand it is delicate because you don't want people trolling and just building like a hard defense team and just trying to kind of meme on people and stall for 30 minutes and then get a win because they frustrate them and have some sort of tiebreaker. So I do understand it's a delicate situation, but if you did a tiebreaker like based on damage inflicted or something like that, or confirmed kills to mitigate some of the revive meta, I'm sure there's a way that you could reward the initiator and the person trying to win, similar to how they do in like fighting, like boxing, UFC. They give extra points to the person initiating, the person engaging, the person trying to win. The judges will weigh that into their decision if it comes down to a tiebreaker in the fight. I think they could do something similar to the live arena, but Cirilla did talk about how they are considering moving the limit of 30 minutes down to something like 15 minutes, which I think would be a huge win for making live arena a little bit better of a game mode. And then also kind of on that subject, they talked about being willing to add some of these new mechanics that have come to the game to also double dip with getting CVC points, like how you get CVC points when you do Classic Arena, Tag Team Arena, and stuff like that. Adding things that have come to the game, like the blessings and the live arena, to coincide with your clan versus clan matches, where you'll get credit for battling in the live arena if you're doing it during a CVC. And then I thought this was a pretty big announcement. They confirmed that there is going to be a huge release in PvE content by the end of the year. So typically game studios, we see this a lot with Blizzard, where they like to release stuff kind of towards the end of the year, where we're heading into the holiday season. It's a little bit colder outside. People are indoors a little bit more often. You've got kids that are going to be on break, college kids that are going to be on break. And we see a lot of game studios like to kind of ramp up there in November towards the end of the year. And Raid is no different. I've done all sorts of different videos here on my channel where I talk about the analytics and the traffic around Raid Shadow Legends online and on YouTube videos and in different communities and stuff, and it does tend to ramp up. All of the years that we've seen Raid be a thing, they do pretty consistently experience a ramp up towards like the end of October and early November, where we head on into the winter, and there's always kind of that uptick in Raid activity. So they are probably going to look to release some big PvE content in like October or November, if I had to guess, and we got that confirmed from Cirilla. And I think this is a big deal because the last kind of PvE releases have been a little bit of a swing and a miss. Not like awful, but I feel like the Hydra and the Iron Twins and the Sand Devil Necropolis, I feel like they haven't really been well received by the player base as a whole. They seem to be a little bit more tailored towards the end game type players, or just really lacking in terms of how exciting it is to farm them and acquire the resources. Like, people think the Iron Twins rewards are only worth it on Sundays when it has the 2x rewards for Void Affinity. I've done different polling on my channel, and a lot of people say, a pretty large percentage of people say, they only farm Iron Twins when it's the 2x rewards. They don't want to waste their energy unless it's on the Void Day when they're getting the double drops. A lot of people on Sand Devil's Necropolis, they either can't get to a point where they can farm it consistently and get some of those higher level oils, so they just farm stage 7 and try to get the lesser oils, and then they feel like they're bricking some of their best artifacts that took them years to acquire. They get super excited to ascend them, and then boom, it's just some terrible flat attack or something, and they're like, oh no, one of my best pieces is ruined. So again, the Sand Devil mechanic kind of flops, and then the Hydra feels like it mostly caters to some of the more end game players, and the people kind of in the early and mid game just can't really enjoy doing the Hydra, and then the rewards are a little bit underwhelming after you get Mithrawa and stuff. So some of these different PvE mechanics have been a little bit of a swing and a miss. I feel like the ones that they did the best on were probably Faction Wars and the Doom Tower. Doom Tower is not perfect, but I do think it was a pretty good addition to the game. I think Faction Wars was probably the best PvE content that they ever added to the game. It's super necessary, and the glyphs and the way to craft items in the forge and stuff that you get from farming Faction Wars and the incentive of building all sorts of these different champions ended up being a really, really solid thing in the game. So hopefully by the end of the year, they can release a PvE mechanic as successful and impactful and enjoyable as Faction Wars. And then I thought this part was interesting. Cirilla talked about how their analytics show them on their end that a lot of players are quitting Raid within a few months after finishing their progress missions and getting Ramantu. So it's going to be very important for them to put a goal out there in the end game past Ramantu that is fair and balanced, but yet still impactful for some of those players to go after. Now, I didn't think this would have been a huge deal because I already see in some of the different polling and discussing in the community that players really, really struggle with being able to get to that point where they can get Ramantu because it's tied to getting gold in Tag Team Arena, which is a huge problem that people just can't get done. So what I would do if I was Plarium is I would relax the requirement on getting into Gold 1. You can still keep Gold 2, Gold 3, Gold 4, and all of that the exact same. If Plarium just will not budge on that, keep them the exact same. But when you have a progress mission tied to PvP, I would relax the requirements on Gold 1 a little bit, because the problem that I've had with Tag Team Arena since the start is they are based on flat scaling. They don't change and they aren't dynamic with the numbers and activity within the player base. So what I mean is when you pull up the numbers in the tag team arena right here and you go to the different tiers, you can see the player limit on gold 1 is 7,000 people, and then gold 2 4,500 people. That's just way too small. I mean, when you've got something like a progress mission tied to PvP and you've got a game as big as Raid, having flat numbers is just crazy to me. And the example that I give was I come from a competitive StarCraft background, and the only thing that was tied to a flat number was Grandmaster. There was only 200 Grandmasters on the entire server. But if you wanted to be Diamond League or Master League, these were based on percentages. So it would scale and move dynamically with the player base. So like if you got Master League, you knew, okay, I'm in the top 2% of players. If you got Diamond League, you knew, okay, I'm in the top 10% of players. And you could constantly kind of have these goals shift around and adjust with the player base. When you do flat numbers like this, it can be super dangerous in terms of blocking out people from getting these progress missions done. But I am okay with like having gold 4 be a flat number, like have the top 5,000 people in the whole world be gold 4 for tag team arena, something like that. I would totally understand, but I want these to be adjusted to be a percentage of the player base. And if we're going to have a mission tied to gold 1, I would want to see the requirement relaxed a little bit. But yeah, on that topic, it's going to be interesting to see what Plarium comes up with in trying to get something out there to keep people interested after they do successfully get Ramontu. And then they talked about the clan boss and some of the different time requirements in the game. And so this has always been a hot topic in the raid community because you've got things like the clan boss that just take way too long. And after you've done hundreds of successful clan boss fights, you've got your good team set up, it's really easy for you to one key the boss, and you have to sit here for years and do the same battle multiple times a day and just sit here for like 20 minutes waiting for your team to get done. I mean, I literally, like when I start my day, I just start my clan boss fight and then I go and do something else. And then I have to come back and start my next clan boss fight and literally go and do something else. Like you can't even, it's not something you can kind of like wait to finish because it takes forever. So the thing is that Plarium talked about was that they're worried about changing the dynamic of how the like giving people instant complete tickets, because a big driving force in the incentive to get better in raid is that your runs get more and more optimized and they get faster and faster. So like, for example, if you have a Fire Knight team that takes 5 minutes, there's a lot of incentive to keep min-maxing your Fire Knight team and get it down to 2 minutes because you can do runs more than twice as fast, and that's a huge boost to how well you can play and manage your account. They want to keep that incentive there instead of just giving instant autocomplete tickets. That way, that would completely ruin the incentive to build a fast team, and it would really destroy some of the value that some of those champions like Seer and Kymar and stuff have within the game. But they did acknowledge they understand that things like the clan boss do need to be adjusted, and there needs to be an opportunity there to finish it a lot faster. So what I would do if I was Plarium is I would say, if you have a team like versus a certain boss and they have hit the maximum goal or whatever 10 straight times without failing, you can lock that team in. So if nothing changes, their masteries, their gear, whatever, you can lock that team in. And as long as you don't alter anything, you can instantly complete that boss fight, which would mean something like you've got an Ultra Nightmare Demon Lord fight. You one key the Ultra Nightmare Demon Lord 10 straight times. What you can do is click lock team, and then you can instant clan boss fight to get that one key no matter what, as long as you haven't changed anything, because Plarium does need to make sure that you're still incentivized to keep those champions built and keep that good gear on them. So you'd have to lock them in and not be able to edit them. But once you do that, then you'd be able to click instant finish on your clan boss fight instead of having to sit here and watch the fight. But the problem is, from a business standpoint and analytically, they want to increase the usage rate of their players and have good stats within their game of how long people are in there. But you do have to balance that. You don't want to alienate players and have them quit because things are too crazy and take too long and they get annoyed. So it's a balancing act of trying to have your game have good analytics and be a financial and business success, while not pushing people away too much and getting them to quit your game. And I think things like having to sit here and wait for an hour on the clan boss could do that potentially. So yeah, that's some of my main takeaways here. Massive shout out to Skratch and Cirilla for the interview that they did here in the raid community. And once again, I will link to Skratch's full interview with Cirilla down below. And it would mean a lot if you head on over there and show him some support, subscribe to his channel, and like the video and all of that stuff to help him in the algorithm. So I appreciate all of you. Have a great rest of your day. Remember to subscribe on your way out if you enjoy daily Raid Shadow Legends content. I'll see you soon in the next video. Thanks. Peace.